It's been 10 years since the murder of Heather Bogle in Clyde. She was a young mother who was working at Whirlpool to create a better life for her daughter. But then she was murdered. It was this case that broke open a story of corruption and botched cases in Sandusky County. 11 Investigates Mel Andrews is here with a preview of her stories coming up tonight on WTOL 11 at 6 o'clock and 11. Now, I noticed the name of your series is Thin Blue Lies.
That's right. That's because at the center of all of the cases that we're highlighting tonight is a Detective Sean O'Connell, who actually went to prison for the role he played as lead investigator in the Heather Bogle case. But there are other families who are affected by his police work or lack thereof.
Take us back to the murder of Heather Bogle. What happened?
So it was 2015, and Heather Bogle was working at Whirlpool. She was kind of down on herself at the time because she was really trying to be a nurse. And she had just failed a nursing exam, and she had befriended a coworker named Daniel Myers, and she told him about how she'd been down on her luck and hadn't been able to pass her test. So he bought some nursing books, and she went over to his house after work. And he said he was going to help her study, and the police believe that she refused his advances and he attacked her. But the investigation took 2 years to solve. It could have taken weeks to solve, Dan, because what we had was Detective Sean O'Connell as lead investigator, and he was busy looking over here at 3 black suspects who he named publicly. One, Kiona Bohr, because she lived in the apartment complex where Heather Bogle's body was found in the trunk of her car. Another one who was an associate of Kiona. And really just put together this theory that they must have all done drugs together, and that was totally false. So he's not looking, in a normal homicide investigation, you're looking at who? The people closest to the victim.
Usually is, yeah.
Yeah, she had her first same-sex relationship. There were a lot of text messages that were revealed later that there was some anger and love and all kinds of those feelings going around in these text messages. Her brother had sent her text messages saying very nasty things to her because she had failed her nursing exam. So there were certainly other avenues. He did not look up her cell phone records. The DNA of those 3 suspects did not match DNA that was under her fingernails. Now, what do you normally do when that happens? You go in another direction, and he did not.
Do you think there was criminal intent here by the cop, or did he just basically inept?
So I asked that question to Matt Westerhold at the Sandusky Register, who I have to give all the credit in the world to, because he's the one who blew all of this wide open in Sandusky County. So I asked him and the current sheriff, Sheriff Hilton, their thoughts on that. And they said that they believe, Sheriff Overmeyer also went to prison for stealing drugs from the drug take-back events. So the theory between them is that Detective O'Connell knew that the sheriff was involved in that illegal activity and that he himself wanted to be sheriff. So he was kind of behind the scenes building a case against him, and he felt if I can solve this huge case, which Heather Bogle was in Sandusky County, then that would set him right up in line to become the next sheriff.
But he skipped a lot of steps in doing so. By that, the whole thing steamrolled out of control.
He skipped a lot of steps, and he is responsible for a lot of hurt. And for a lot of families.
Still in jail?
He ended up going to prison for 2 years,
Okay.
No longer works in law enforcement.
Are things much different in Sandusky County now?
I believe they are. Matt Westerhold, who I trust is a journalist and who's been covering all these stories for years, believes that Sheriff Hilton is the right one to be leading there. But Sheriff Hilton came in and he campaigned for Sheriff Overmeyer's job on the promise of solving the Bogle case, and he did it in 5 months. He matched the DNA, he got the cell phone records, which pointed right to Daniel Myers' trailer.
Sometimes you wonder if when these small counties, not in a large urban area, the police officers are there to just, kind of keep
They don't really experience high-level crimes a lot,
this
right?
was, a serious murder in that area. That's something you don't get all the time.
The other thing that, Matt Westerhold, he never trusted that Detective O'Connell was going to be able to solve the Bogle case because he reported, and I give him so much credit for being in the small town and running such a big headline. He ran a headline that Sheriff Overmeyer and Detective O'Connell have a history of botching cases. I mean, that's pretty explosive to say. And so do you remember Jacob Lamberios, who died in 2012 from a self-inflicted gunshot wound? They said it was suicide. Well, that investigation was never handled properly, according to the sheriff in Westerhold. No gunshot residue was taken, no measurements were taken. It was never investigated. You really should, anytime someone dies under an unnatural circumstance,
Sure.
you should be identifying that through homicide first. And once you can clear that, then you can say, okay, maybe suicide. There was another case in 1999, a guy named Lee Noss. He was put into a dumpster, a lot of people said, by a Sandusky County Sheriff's deputy. The garbage truck comes along
Trash
and
compactor.
crushes him. And that case has never been brought any closure to any family. And then you have Daniel Myers, who killed Heather Bogle. His first partner, who's the father of his son, was found dead next to a shotgun, and that was ruled a suicide. Her family, the sheriff, Westerhold, none of them believed that was a suicide, but because the case was botched from the start, all of those steps were not properly followed, the family will truly never know.
So the Bogle case was solved, but yet there's a lot of cases out there, a lot of strings attached. That's what you'd be focusing on basically in your...
Yeah, really the Bogle case, as it was botched in the beginning, revealed all these other cases that this one particular detective touched.
Looking forward to seeing your reports today at 6 and 11 on WTOL. By the way, WTOL 11 Plus, we have all kinds of case stories there for you. Some more on the
We've
Heather
got an episode
Bogle
on
murder.
Heather Bogle, yeah.